Up until, from the founding of the Republic until what was the year? 77, I guess it was, that the Boston versus Bilotti case was decided. The spending of money to influence politics, whether it was to encourage people to vote for somebody or whether it was to encourage a politician to do a particular thing, the spending of money was considered conduct. And conduct was something that could be regulated. In fact, in the Buckley versus Vallejo decision in 1976, the Supreme Court affirmed that spending money for political purposes was conduct and could therefore be regulated by Congress, leading to leading to actually upholding and affirming in some ways many of the laws that had come about with regard to the legalized bribery of members of Congress and the White House out of the Nixon scandals of the early 70s. And leading and setting the stage for things like McCain-Feingold. Then in 2010, the Supreme Court took this very bizarre position that the spending of money to influence political activity, a position that certainly George Washington would not have agreed with, nor anyone since then, was not actually conduct. It was speech in and of itself, and therefore it was mystically protected by the First Amendment, which protects speech but does not protect conduct other than association. The freedom of association is protected by the First Amendment, but it protects freedom of speech. So Harry Reid has suggested, and both Democrats and Republicans, and this is something where it's startling how broad, if you go to the MoveToAmend.org coalition, over 500 communities now have voted for this thing, or 17 states have voted for an amendment to the Constitution that would say that we are going to go back to the understanding of spending money as a behavior, as a conduct, as opposed to speech, which can therefore be regulated by we the people in ways so that it can't corrupt our democracy. Peter Schiff is with us. He is the host of the Peter Schiff Show, an investment advisor, CEO, and chief global strategist of the Euro-Pacific Capital. Schiff Radio, SCHIFFradio.com is his website. And Peter, if I understand this right, you are of the opinion that spending money is actually speaking. Do I have that?
Well, I would like to go a step further. I'd like to get rid of all the campaign finance laws that are currently on the books. I don't think the government should get involved in this issue.
So you would like us to live in a country where basically the oligarchs run the show, sort of like Ukraine.
Well, look who runs the show now. I mean, almost everybody gets reelected. We have a nation of career politicians. Some of these guys have been there for their entire lives. They've never even been in a private
They're not
sector.
running the show, and you and I both know it.
Well, I ran for Senate. I don't know if you ever ran for office, but
no,
I actually ran. No. And the most difficult part of my running was complying with campaign finance laws. And the reason I may never run again was because I don't want to have to deal with that bureaucracy. It's the worst part. It's the reason that the only way you can be successful in politics today is to be a career politician with lots of special interests vying for you to use their power to their benefit, or you can be a gazillionaire and you can self-finance. But if you're just a concerned citizen who wants to take time out of his life and go to Washington for a term or two to help solve problems, you don't have a chance.
Well, Arizona and Maine looked at this.
Maybe you would.
Arizona and Maine looked at this situation that you're describing so eloquently, Peter. And they said, here's an easy solution. And Portland, Oregon did. Actually, I lived in Portland when they passed this law. Said, if you can get, in the case of Portland, it was if you can get 1,000 people to give you $5 and registered voters give you $5 and sign a petition that they support you to be on the ballot, then the city will give you $100,000 and we will match anything that is spent against you. In other words, publicly funded elections. Arizona had publicly funded elections for about 6 years. Maine, they had them for 4 years. During that period of time, the number of people who were average working Joes and literally housewives who came into the political arena increased by more than 300% in Arizona, more than 200% in Maine. There was a real shot of average people coming into the political arena. Same thing in Portland. Then the Supreme Court said, wait a minute, you're regulating speech.
Too, just not on the federal level, but they have public financing of state offices. I'm not in favor
but
of that.
Then the Supreme Court struck those things down, Peter.
We have.
But then the Supreme Court came along and said, Arizona, Maine, sorry, you can't have that because you are regulating, Scalia, the 5-4 decisions. You cannot have that because you are regulating speech. And the spending of money is speech. And this seems to me like, let's just turn America over to the billionaires.
Well, right now, the billionaires that have power, if they have power, it's through political connections. What I want to do is take away the power from Washington.
How?
So the only way billionaires can get rich is by solving my problems, by coming up with products that I want to buy that make my life better.
No, that's not true, and you know that's not true. The majority of billionaires in the United States, in terms of billions, inherited their money. The 5 Walton heirs have more wealth than the bottom 31% of America. They inherited that money. The Koch brothers have $80 billion. They inherited their first few billion from their daddy.
All that money. But would you have preferred it if Sam Walton, before he died, just dismantled Walmart, shut down all the stores, fired all its workers, and blown all his money on wine and women so that he didn't leave anything to his...
You're putting out a complete straw man argument. What I'm saying is the consequence of doing away with all campaign finance laws and asserting, as Scalia has asserted in a 5-4 decision, and as John Paul Stevens just wrote an eloquent book saying Scalia is nuts on this, is that somehow spending, if a billionaire spends money, that is the same thing as speech. And I've got probably about $140 in my right-hand pocket right now in my pants, and I haven't heard a peep from it all day.
Yeah, well, look, I can tell you the most expensive thing that I had to encounter when I ran for office was all the people I had to hire, all the accountants, all the bureaucrats to keep track of the money, so that I can stay in compliance.
If that's what it takes to have a democratic republic, what's wrong with it?
Maybe a $10,000 fine because I didn't report everything the right way.
Peter, your laziness is not my problem.
No, it's not laziness. It's raising the bar. The reason it's so expensive to run for office is because candidates have to follow all these ridiculous rules and regulations.
No, it's so expensive to run for office because
campaigns would be a lot less expensive and more people could run.
No. The reason why it's so expensive to run for office is because television advertising costs a fortune, and they jack their rates up around election time. And this is why the media will not take on this issue. It's why they don't even report on it. I mean, you've got almost 20 states that have passed resolutions statewide where the majority of people in the state have said money is not speech, it's property. Spending money is not speech, it's behavior. It should be regulated. The majority and the media will not even report on it because where does that money go? It goes to the media. You may have, you may have had to hire an accountant and a lawyer, and you have my sympathies. But I'm sorry, freedom ain't free.
But none of this is serving the interest of the electorate. We're not getting better representatives. The representatives are all bought.
Arizona and Maine got better representatives for a couple of years.
Politician who's got all the special interests backing him.
So let's get the special interests out by saying that money is not speech, and the spending of money is behavior.
They're still going to be there. All these government laws just make it worse. Let's just have freedom. Let's count on that.
Have freedom for the billionaires, but not for the average guy. That's your position.
Spend a lot of money on television because the average American is too dumb to actually research the issues, and they're influenced by a 30-second commercial. I mean, we shouldn't even need commercials. I mean, you can put your platform.
So you want to ban commercials?
People can research you and see what you stand for.
So you want to ban commercials?
I don't want to ban them. It's just unfortunate.
Okay, so let's. Yeah, right. And that's why nobody buys advertised products and why nobody bothers advertising, right? Peter Schiff, you can read it at schiffradio.com. Hang on just a second.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Peter, I'm sorry. I meant to give you the last word. Thank you for being with us, Peter.
Bye.
Good talking with you. Schiff Radio, SCHIFF radio.com. We'll be back.